Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Practical Guitarist or on Twitter as @PracGuitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com and donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com. Hello, Jim. We have a lot to talk about tonight.
We do, David.
I have the full docket here. I feel like a court reporter. Start with your segment. Let's talk about Tales from Guitar Center here. Oh, don't do it anymore. I hope this isn't news.
If I have to hear
Jesus.
you have a guitar pick one more time. All right, so we really should just carry around like pockets full of them all day long. I had a guy come in. I'm just going to tell one story because I thought this one was funny, and then we'll move on because I got to save some of the funny ones. And so today, a guy walks in, and he says, "I'm looking for the guitar picks." He's literally standing next to the guitar picks.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the guitar picks. I said, "Well, they're right here, sir." And he goes,
"You've come to the right place."
So he goes, "I want some more of these." He pulls out a handful from his pocket of Guitar Center guitar picks.
Wait a minute. So he wants the Guitar Center branded ones.
Yeah. And then I'm not sure where this came from because he could have actually been somebody famous. I don't know.
I wish that the viewers could see my facial expressions.
Yeah. I mean, like a handful, right? like you would have like a handful of gum that you were about to give out to children.
Here, I just pre-chewed this. Like, here, take it.
It gets funnier. So then he goes, I was hoping for you to give me some more of these. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I don't care.
Yeah, like they're promotional. So
they're promo. And he goes, "Well, I throw them out to people when I play to crowds." Like, okay, awesome.
Wait a minute, what?
Yeah, he throws them out to people.
So when the only way I can see this actually working is like a comedy routine. Everybody's like, "Here, take a pick," and then they throw it out to the audience, and the guy looks at it and he goes, "Guitar Center."
Ah, I was hoping to have this guy's famous name on it.
Yeah, right.
I have no idea what his name was, but I just thought it was hilarious.
First name Guitar, last name Center.
Yeah, but first name Guitar, last name Center. Phone numbers on there and everything. All right, ladies, give them a call. So, yeah. Oh, I want to talk to something else after that, but that's a bigger thing. So let's get to our first. You have so many things on the agenda. I think we need to get to our first.
Yeah, it's straight up nightmarish tonight.
Yep.
Jim is rubbing his eyes vigorously right now.
I don't know why.
Allergic reaction.
No, I came home. Actually, I was driving home and I needed to get some Tums and stuff. So I drive into Walmart. I get the stuff. I walk back out. Tums and bread. That was it. That's all I got. Oh, shoot. Now I see the other thing. I was supposed to get hazelnut coffee mate. Anyway, so I leave Walmart and I decide, okay, there's a Mod Pizza right there. I drive into Mod Pizza. I order a Fred. Now, the Fred hasn't been on the docket any much longer because it was a summer promotional thing. But the guy said, "Oh, yeah, I remember how to make one." Makes me a pizza. I get home and it's a white pizza. Fred is a red pizza. All Fred was a here we go, people. I know you're gonna hate me for that. Pineapple and ham pizza.
All right,
Yes,
all right.
pineapple on my pizza. On a plain old pizza. He made this white pizza with arugula and all this other stuff. And I'm like, what the f- is this? I couldn't even feed it to the dog. He looked at it like, ew, this is gross. So I called there. I had to go back. They did refund me. I had to drive home. So I was an hour and a half, which should have taken me 20 minutes.
Well,
It took me an hour and a half.
I just don't understand. Like, so Mod Pizza has promotional pizzas, right? Like they do that thing, but they really don't
Right.
have promotional pizzas because they have the same ingredients every day of the year, and you can get whatever you want on anything you order.
But the Fred, instead of just pineapple, it was baked pineapple. Yes, that was the difference. That's the only thing they don't have on the menu all year round is baked pineapple. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the Fender Ultra Stratocaster of pizzas. Just saying. One minor ingredient. Rest is the same.
Yeah, just the heel is like different, you know.
I just had to say that, but I want to say good things about the Ultra later, but I just want to say that. All right, so let's go into your first talking point.
All right. So I got a bunch of stuff to talk about tonight. I'll try not to dominate things too much because I want to make this more of a discussion than anything. But before we do that, we do have a discussion group. It's in Facebook. You can join our podcast group, and I would encourage you to do so. We have an active community there. It is the Practical Guitarist Podcast on Facebook. And there's a page in the group, and you want to join the group. And when you join the group, I will or Jim will approve you, and then we will proceed to make you feel either uncomfortable or comfortable, depending on how you feel.
Yep.
And we have a Patreon group. If you like the show, you listen a lot. You can, give us $1 a month or whatever, and help us keep the lights on. And we got a Threadless store if you like, merchandise and that kind of thing. We got, coffee cups and shirts and all that kind of nonsense. You can find all the links for those things in our Facebook group, and I would encourage you to take a look. So, that's the plug information for the show. And yes, I know we do it in the bumper, but everybody skips the bumper, so we do it during the show every once in a while too.
That's right. We're not trying to say Patreon too much, but Patreon. Okay, I said Patreon as many times as I can say it.
Patreon.
Yes. Patreon.
What? I it's been cutting out. I can't tell what you just said, Jim. Did you say Patreon?
I thought I said Patreon. But I might have said Patreon. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we support the patronage system here, so
that's right. We are actually Patreons of other channels, guys.
Yes, we are.
So it's just funny, We're not Patreons of our own channel. We pay our own bills. So.
Yes, we are. Actually, if my voice sounds funny, it's because I'm dealing with a cable mess on the floor here right now. Anyway, so I got some new stuff this week. I got 2 pedals. We'll talk about one at the beginning of the show. We'll talk about one at the end of the show. Yep. And one of them I bought. I kind of put my money where my mouth is. We've been talking in the group, and I posted a couple times that I was interested in this brand, and I wanted to explore what they had to offer. And it's not a brand you're going to find in your local retailer. But what is kind of interesting about it is, of course, I've been using the Kemper. That's my primary amplifier right now. The Kemper lacks one thing, right? It lacks drives, and it lacks really good distortion sounds. Like there's stuff in there. There's boosts and that kind of thing. There's a tube screamer. There's a rat, but there's no clon. There's no OCD. There's no blues breaker. There's none of that kind of stuff.
That's right. There's no metal zone. And why is that?
Well, you can just use an amp instead. And I'll get to that too because I bought new profiles today, and I'm really excited about them.
Awesome.
So I bought the Source Audio Kingmaker fuzz. Now, for those of you that know me, I'm a fuzz guy, right? I didn't buy this because it's a fuzz. That it did influence my decision-making process, but it wasn't the core reason, and I'll explain why. So Source Audio, when you get these pedals, they have 3 modes on them, right? So you get 3 fuzz pedals on one pedal, and that's basically the way the Kingmaker comes is you in the center position you have a fuzz face, on the left position you have a big muff, on the right position you have an Octavia. And my initial impression was like digital dirt, right? You know, it's a thing everybody rolls their eyes about if you've played guitar for any length of time. Like digital dirt, this is going to be garbage. That has not been the case with the Source Audio stuff. Now, I actually knew somebody who had some of these pedals, and it just like completely slipped my mind. When I got mine, I plugged it in, and it immediately was like, "Whoa, this is not what I expected. It's much better than I anticipated, and I'm cool with it, right?" So it's kind of taken me down this path, looking at boards and all that kind of stuff. But aside from that, what makes the pedal cool is that if you get the editor software, which runs on your PC, your Mac, your iPad, Android devices, you know, what basically any platform, they have an app available. You plug it into the pedal either via it's like a headphone jack or the bigger what do they call it, the TRS jack, to a mini headphone plug that plugs into your device, and then you can use, or you can use USB, which they give you multiple connection options, and then you use the software, and you got two engines inside this thing, so you can have two distinctly different drive sounds going on at the same time. And not only that, but you can configure them in different stereo routing configurations. So you have two ins and two outs. You could theoretically have one distortion pedal on one output and another on another output and switch between it with an ABY switcher. Or you can stack them. So like I can have a tube screamer going into a Klon, or you can have like parallel. So you can have like a fuzz face and a tube screamer at the same time. And then you can have that going up mono or stereo. So you can have like literally one cable goes one place, one cable goes another. And all of these different things um, allow you a lot more flexibility than you get with your standard like overdrive pedal. Now, here's where things get really crazy. So I was reading the manual, and you can actually use the ins and outs, like one half of the pedal ins and outs, as a loop inside this drive pedal, so you can have things in a loop on the drive. Honest to God, like I'm like, wait a minute, why would I even want to do that? But I can. Um, it's extremely flexible. The software is great. It's pretty easy to use. I sat around. I think it was Thursday morning it's Friday morning for like an hour, just tinkering around, changing some sounds, and getting the pedal dialed in the way I want it. And then you get 6 preset slots. So if you hold down the button from bypass for a few seconds, it blinks red, and then you go into preset mode. And in preset mode, you get 3 presets, right? But you can also use the 3-way toggle switch on the front, and assign different sounds to it as well. So in that way, you get 6 sounds, right, out of the box. And the only drawback I found with the pedal is that it's 9-volt battery only. Not 9-volt battery only. Battery adapter. You have to have a 9-volt DC jack, which is part of the reason why I'm looking at a board now, because I'm like, well, if I continue to use this and I actually incorporate in my rig, I need to have a power supply to go with it. I have a power supply. I still have the board. So once I get it all squared away, that's what I'm going to do. But I think the Kingmaker is a kind of a misnomer, because they call it a fuzz pedal. The engines inside of it are like everything from light drive, amp emulation, all the way up to like, heavy fuzzes and crazy stuff that you would normally get. And in fact, it has 42 different sounds in it, 42 different engines. And like I said, you can pair them up, stereo parallel or whatever, and go to town and, kind of craft your own sounds. And it has fully parametric EQ inside as well. So you get two mid bands of parametric EQ, and then a shelving filter for highs and lows. And you can assign the controls to control, any of the bands of EQ you want, or a lot of the other parameters as well. So in that regard, it's extremely flexible. Jim, are you on mute?
Yeah, because my nose has been
Oh, he's having an allergy attack,
sneezing
folks.
like crazy. Yeah,
Yeah. So
allergic to my own
Jim,
home.
you had the reason why I said that, because I want to get you involved in the conversation. You had the Strymon Sunset, right?
Right. Yep.
How many functions did the Strymon Sunset have if you plugged it into a computer? Or could you even plug it into a computer?
None and no.
How much did it cost?
Ooh, geez.
$350?
Yeah. Yeah, it was over $300.
Between $325 and $350, right?
Yep.
Here's where it gets fun, right?
Yep.
Diamond Sunset, $350. Take a wild guess what the Kingmaker costs.
It was $299.
Okay, so that's $300 even. Guess what the Kingmaker costs?
What's that?
The Kingmaker. How much do you think it costs?
$299.
$150.
$150. Was that a good guess?
$150, man. Can you believe that though? So like Strymon doesn't offer any of this extra functionality.
No, but they did offer you the ability to buy yet. That's the reason why it costs so much. Buy yet another pedal called the favorite switch, so you could access one
presets.
More preset.
Presets.
One. Not presets. Preset.
Yeah, single preset, right. And so that's what initially drew me in this conversation. We had a thing when the Iridium came out a while back in the group where somebody was talking about the Strymon ecosystem, right? And this is another component of the Source Audio thing, right? They have a legitimate ecosystem. Okay, so Strymon is modular like everybody else's pedals, right? You plug in the power, you plug a 1/4 inch in, and you plug a 1/4 inch out, or 2 1/4 inch outs, or whatever, depending on if it's stereo or mono. And it may have MIDI if it's one of the big box pedals, or some of the smaller box pedals I think have MIDI as well. But not all of them do. And so I guess that's ecosystem, but sort of, because MIDI is kind of beyond ecosystem, right? Like MIDI is a industry wide standard at this point.
Right.
Anything you want to automate, connect, talk to, it's going to have MIDI.
And ergo, you can't really call MIDI an ecosystem because MIDI means I could use any MIDI device.
Right.
Just as I use my Boss to control my Marshall, and I used my my Line 6 to control the Blue Guitar Amp 1. So
now we're gonna have a deeper discussion about ecosystems later in the episode, so remember that. But while I'm still talking about Source, they have a thing called the Neuro Hub, and it's just this little box that goes in your pedal board. It powers up, and then it allows you to recall and store presets, and it's your MIDI adapter for the whole system, right? So then you can use this to control your system so that you can have 24 presets all doing different things that are recallable to tap the switch. And it's as simple as you hold the button down for a second, and then it saves a new preset. And then that new preset is assigned to, MIDI parameter, right? MIDI control, I think it's control code. But then they also, and I think that powers, it doesn't power, but I think it'll actually control up to 6 pedals all at once. It's a pretty cool system if you've seen it function. And Sweetwater has a very good video on it. I highly recommend if you're interested in this product and in line of products. You might want to watch that video. And then they also take you through their MIDI controller, which has some nifty features which are really specific to the Neuro Hub, and allow this whole system to work. Now, you could easily drop, if you got all if you got all their pedals, you could easily drop, $1,000 and have, basically a Helix, right? Except without amp modeling. That's all discrete pedals, so you could swap things in and out as you needed, and get a pretty flexible thing going. What I think is interesting about what Source is doing is that they've chosen to keep things modular, whereas Helix is all in one box, right? And Source they have updated their pedals and stuff as well. So I know the Kingmaker originally came out with 30 something models, and they added an extra 12.
There's definitely an upside to that.
Yeah.
But keep going.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about, how Strymon does it now. So if we back up, because this is going to lead into the real discussion here. So if we back up and look at Strymon, you hear people talk about the Strymon mothership, right? Which is
right.
The 3 giant Strymon pedals, and then maybe some of their others like a drive and,
right. Stuff like the Sunset.
Probably the Iridium now would be included in that, I would think.
Yeah.
And
I don't read a Big Sky, right?
Yeah,
and,
Big Sky, Timeline,
Timeline, that's it.
And Mobius.
And Mobius. Yep.
And if you put those 3 pedals on a board, those are all $450, I think.
Jeez. Yeah.
All right, so let's call them 400, right?
Yeah,
$1,200. That's
let's look that up.
$1,200 for the trifecta. That doesn't include your amps. That doesn't include your drive pedals, right?
Yeah.
Now I've heard some other industry people buzzing and saying that the real amp modeler is coming, which is going to be their answer to the Helix and the Axe effects and stuff. But mark my words, if this thing makes an appearance, $3,000. It will be $3,000.
You think?
Well, absolutely.
I'm gonna
Absolutely, because they have to be head and shoulders above everybody else in terms of price. They'll be beyond Fractal. They will.
Yeah, so Timeline, Big Sky, Mobius. Did I run out of?
No, Timeline, Big Sky, Mobius. Then you need a dry pedal, right?
Right.
And
I'm just saying what they're big. They're big ones.
That's the tri.
Now, do they?
Yeah, and that's $1,200 just for those three.
It's $1,200. Yeah, it's over $1,200.
Yeah, and not including your power supply and all that stuff.
Right, and their power supply. Excuse me, I pulled a Rick there. That their power supply is $250 for the Zuma.
Yeah, and you know what? Their power supply.
And I'm not saying it's bad.
Their power supply is fine. Like,
yeah, it's great.
And actually, price wise, it's not insane either.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people who've bought Zumas, but the whole reason the Zuma exists is because their pedals have weird power requirements.
Right, so it's got a lot of power. It's 500 milliamps each output.
Bless me.
And a lot of them are what, 250, right?
I missed the mute button.
Yeah,
we're Jim's doing it, and so I'm doing it too. That's what's happening here.
It's what happens. It's like yawning.
Don't you yawn right now, please.
Oh no, I can't. I'm not going to yawn. So I want to talk a little bit about modularity. Are we ready to talk about modularity versus putting it onto a box?
Yeah. So I want to talk about. Yeah, we can start with that. Let's talk about modular.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of the price point, I mean, I don't see anything wrong, and I know you don't either with the Mobius or anything like that. They're pricey, but I don't see anything wrong with them. Whether you're Strymon or you're what's the company that you were just talking about?
Source.
Thank you. Source Audio. I almost said Sound Audio.
I'm like, no, it's not. Boss has done this.
Yeah,
too.
Boss is doing it now again with their 200 line pedals. So you got their 500 line pedals, and you got their 200 line pedals. So now let's take whether you're Boss, whether you're Strymon, whether you're whoever. The upside of that versus a Helix is now if I'm Strymon or I'm Boss or I'm whoever, I only have to update my modulation pedal, and that's it. And I don't have to update the whole thing, and I don't affect the whole chain. And I know that in the ecosystem, and we'll talk about ecosystems more in a minute, but in the ecosystem, each one provides for interconnectivity and control.
Yeah, it's some distinct part of the platform, right?
Of each one. So if I was a Strymon person and I bought the trifecta, it would make sense for me. It would really make sense for me to purchase the Iridium because in my mind, and it does make sense, I can launch my favorites from my Mobius, from my Timeline, from whatever. When I'm doing that control, everything goes in a sequence and series of stuff. And I don't, and I'm not saying you can or can't do it with a Line 6 device with MIDI as well. But because of that, I have a certain program knowledge. Let's say knowledge. I don't know.
It's usually easier to configure that.
Right. And don't they make a big box drive pedal? I can't remember what it was called.
No, they do not.
Oh, they don't? I thought for some reason they were.
No, they do not.
They hadn't done it yet then.
No, and a lot of people thought that that's what the Iridium would wind up being. Yeah. Is it would have, drive and other things in it. I'm actually looking at the Iridium right now. So just because we're talking about it, it does do full featured MIDI control. And it has access to 300 preset locations. And so the advantage, of course, would be that if you plug a MIDI cable in from each of these devices, you do a program change up on one, it's going to program change up on the others. And so it's a lot easier to program. Having done that with certain manufacturers, like I totally get it. It makes sense to do that if you don't want to go through the crazy programmability nonsense that you're going to have to do with the switching.
And then they have their own switch, multi-switch, which I don't know if this is expandable or not, but it's a 3-button multi-switch for $90 or $99. I don't think that's pricey. I honestly think that's a reasonable price in Strymon's
Yeah,
line.
I mean,
So,
yeah,
I
because
mean, go ahead.
well, I mean, so that's really the rub here, right? So
Right.
as we talked about Strymon in the past, like the reason why Strymon takes a hit from a lot of people is because the price. I mean, they're expensive. Um,
Yeah.
nothing, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. They are expensive. They are expensive for what they are. Um, that doesn't mean they're not a good quality product. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, if any other dry pedal I want to buy is not going to be $300. Any
Right.
other cab modeler I want to buy is not going to be $400 unless I'm buying something with a lot of other features that does not have.
Right.
And so that's more or less what I'm getting at here is like, yeah, there's a lot of great tools coming out of Strymon, but just
Mhm.
understand that like there are similar great tools for a lot less money.
Well, I felt like just kind of an aside here. I felt like Wampler was going to go down this road a year or two ago because I remember him hinting. You're smiling, so you
He's
know something.
so he's very interested in IR technology. A
Yep.
lot of companies right now are. I mean, look, Sir has their IR load box, and I've heard that Rivera may be working on something. Um, and that's like an emerging technology, right? And so I have a feeling 2020 is going to be the year of IRs, and you're going to
Yeah.
see an explosion of cabinet modeling apparatuses, which is really funny because the Chinese kind of led the charge with things like the Moore radar, right? Um, but you're going to see these other products coming onto the market that are going to be more focused. And I wouldn't be surprised if Drive does, or if Boss, for example, doesn't come out with a line of drive pedals that are based on their popular stuff with a cabinet
Yep.
emulated out with IR technology in it. They've already made the shift to using surface mount components. It makes everything
Yep.
smaller, and you can actually fit the chip needed for IR loading, or one of the chips needed for that. And
Yep.
I mean, literally, you can put it on a switch, and it's funny because I shared with Jeff Biesiadecki a while back. There was a company that had done this, right? They
Right.
bought, I think it was a switch, or it was the output jack. I'm not sure which, that automatically had an IR loader on it, and you could literally just plug your USB cable in, load your IR, stick it on the thing, and then you're done, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, when is this technology going to make its way into the hands of companies like
Right.
Boss, who will be using it on everything at some point? Uh,
Right.
now,
Yeah. I can see the Katana 3 having IR.
yeah, well, it already does. It just doesn't have
Oh, well, I
a
mean,
loader. I mean,
right. That's what I mean. A loader. Yeah.
so that's the thing. I don't know. So, like, if Boss is going to do something, I don't know that necessarily they're going to put a loader on, like, DS1, for example, but they will
No.
put a pre-built IR there, and maybe it's
Right.
on a different switch, or maybe like there's an internal dip switch that you can just toggle, and then all of a sudden the thing, or knowing them, it'll probably just be a switch on the device itself, and it'll turn it on or off. Uh,
Yeah, I could see that like in their Wazacraft level because there's
That's
gonna have
exactly
to
what I'm
be
thinking. It wouldn't be like the base
yeah.
model, but it would be like its own thing. Like maybe you call it, the emulated line or something.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
Whatever the Japanese word for emulate is.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I
uh,
don't know. I don't know Japanese,
no,
but I do know. So I want to talk while we're talking about the IRs. I want to say something real quick. So I was one of the people who thought, okay, Fender when they put out the new one tone IR slash amp modeling amps that came out, the deluxe and the reverb. I thought, okay, twin reverb. I thought, man, okay, it's going to be a fad. It's going to be. I got to use one today for the 1 hour it was in the store because it was gone that fast.
was it good?
It was great. It was great. I mean, back to back, literally sitting back to back with its tube component thing. If I was going to buy one, I would definitely consider that
For the weight
solid state version
for the weight reduction.
for the weight, for it is as good as you're going to get. And the truth is, I mean, from a 2x12 built in for that unit, if that's all you care
Yeah,
about,
well,
if you're going to be a 1 amp person,
Right, right.
I would say 100%. If I was going to say I'm going to spend $10.99 on that, I'm going to spend $9.99 on this, I'm spending $9.99 on that. If that's the only amp I'm concerned. We had that discussion before.
Yeah,
If it
because
was the only amp I want.
my whole
Right.
my whole complaint about the situation of those things was that not that the modeling was going to be good. Like I knew that was going to be
Oh,
spot on because it's only they have one job. You had one job.
yeah,
Uh,
one job.
um, no, they
Internet meme.
I knew that was going to be good, but my concern was that like, dude, that's a lot of money for one job.
Right.
And basically with a weight reduction. And I'll tell you, I ran
Yep.
into a guy um and I see him all the time at open mics. Like he's becoming sort of a friend of mine, and he has a deluxe reverb. Actually, has several
Yep.
amps where he takes the cabinet and hucks it in the closet, and then builds a solid pine cabinet or whatever because it's super light. And I
Yep.
I I kid you not, it's a 50% reduction in weight.
Mm.
Yeah, and, like, when you realize that, you go, "Yeah, so doing the digital thing's great, but the maximum you're gonna get in reduction is, like, 25%." That's
Yep.
why I'm like, I don't really feel like this is all that necessary. Now, if you want a future proof, you probably get a tube amp at this point because we know they're gonna be still be producing tubes for the next 20
Yep.
years. Um, and who knows about, the digital boards and those things and
Right.
how long there's gonna be longevity. And that's another part of where I'm going with the ecosystem. So
Yeah.
we started to talk about modularity, right? And the pedal
Right.
board has really become like this like tinker toy assembly thing for a lot of guitar players
Right.
who are using the pedal board as their primary sound source and literally just using a clean loud amp, right? Um,
Right. Right.
which
Which, let's
there's
face it, that's
definitely
a
merit to that.
yeah.
I've done it, and I'm sure everybody else in the group at some point has done this. If
Yeah.
you played out, you probably considered this as an option. So with the plethora of pedals that are available today, modularity is great. Now, as far as ecosystem is concerned, I still think there is a Strymon ecosystem because I think there is that easy functionality with their MIDI programming and all that. I think they're missing a few key components to make their
Yeah.
ecosystem strong. So let's back up. Let's talk about Source for a second, and then I'm gonna switch over. So to recap, Source has their line of pedals, right? And they got delay, reverb, tremolo. Actually, they don't have tremolo. They have delay, reverb. They have two different reverbs, and then they have drive, fuzz, which are
Yep.
basically the same pedal with different colors, and then they have
Yep.
modulation, again, same pedals, different colors. And I believe some of the controls may be different on these, and so if you want the specific controls, like you might have to get the specific pedal or whatever. But the whole idea is you can flash them and have different sounds,
Right.
or double up. Yeah, many of them have. I think others have multiple engines, so you can like mix and match. Of course, they're all stereo, which is really cool because even their drive pedal is stereo input, right? Um,
Yep.
which is pretty nuts. You don't normally see that. So then they have the Solman MIDI controller and the Neuro Hub,
Yep.
which allows all this stuff to communicate. And the Solman MIDI controller is designed to tie all of that together and interface with external devices. Okay, so that's an ecosystem, right? Because not
Yep.
only are they providing you all the functionality work within your own realm, right? And you can do it with a proprietary cabling system and never touch MIDI if you really want to. Or you can use their MIDI controller and it's all, literally push button simplicity. You don't have to go and do a whole lot of programming. Um,
Right.
and I think that's superior to what Strymon does. I do. And it's mostly because they have the controller apparatus. That's a big part of it.
Right.
Um, but also because the pedals are small. I'm not like even their biggest pedals are not much bigger than your normal like
Yeah. The Ventress and the
what they call it,
Nemesis and
what are
the
the Hammond
Collider.
closures, like it's like a double pedal, it's not they're
Yeah.
nothing is larger than that.
It's about a pedal and a
I
half.
think everything's smaller than the Strymon big box stuff because I
Yeah.
now I remember when I got my Boss GD 500, I thought the Strymon stuff was bigger. It's not. They're basically the same size. This is a lot slightly smaller than the Strymon big box stuff for the
Yeah.
Collider, which is a delay and reverb in the same box.
Right. That's what I was
A
saying.
lot of people are saying the quality level of the delay and reverbs in the Collider is actually better than what you get out of Strymon at the $400 price point.
Yeah.
But
Well, the Collider is $350.
yes,
I mean, I don't want to.
but it's a delay and reverb, Jim, and in order to do that from Strymon, you
Oh,
have to
that's
spend
true. Yeah.
$800.
You bought it by the two, which is like $850
Yeah.
or $900. Okay, so I want to say this. So let's roll the clock back a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Does anybody remember the tuna melt and all the other?
Yeah, the Dan Electro.
Right. Now, I'm not saying that was a
That's the opposite of an ecosystem. That's brand.
I'm not. That's right. It was a branding thing. And then Boss saw that and they said, "Now wait a minute. If we built a pedal board
that fit
which, by the
Boss
way,
compact pedals,
that took the Boss compact pedals,
they still
put them
exist.
in a pedal board,
You can still buy them.
You can buy one right now on sale at Guitar Center for $159.99. So now you can.
Jim was looking today. He's like, I need to take that home.
I did look at it. But if I had more than one Boss pedal, two Boss pedals, three. Sorry,
You're not the
wow.
boss
I
of me.
actually am in the small one. I have the tuner. I have the metal zone. Remember my metal zone that's been antiqued.
You mean your doorstop?
Yeah, I still got to do a video, but my metal zone and my DS1.
You got a doorstop and a paperweight.
Listen, mister.
Pretty soon he's going to be hammering nails in that DS1.
But anyway,
I'm sorry.
So
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Anyway, I'm just, but I'm sitting here. I'm laughing so hard. My eyes are tearing. The fact is, though, if I was to use that level of Boss pedals, which I know a lot of people that do, I really do.
Yeah. I've done
it. Let's face it, you could easily fill a 5-pedal Boss pedal board, those pedal boards that they make, and they're nice, they're plastic, it's also contained, it's got the power supply built in. Yeah,
we're going to talk about a plastic pedal at the end of this episode, trust me.
But yeah, because you got one coming up. But my point is, I think that was the beginning of an ecosystem for pedals.
Sure,
because that was a long time ago.
Yeah, and that is because they offered a product that was like kind of extra pedal. But the problem with Boss doing that is like they branded it specifically to their pedals. Now I've seen solutions where people like make other pedals fit or whatever, and that's fine. I just think that like, and I guess that's really what an ecosystem is it is a branded specifically to the devices you have. And if you're going to talk about companies that make a comprehensive line of pedals, Boss is it. I mean, they make everything except for an IR litter, which I think is going to come this year.
I'm willing to bet we're going to see something in NAMM. But so if I looked at Boss right now, this is what I like about Boss that nobody else is doing. I don't care if it's Strymon, I don't care if it's Source Audio, anybody. Nobody else is saying, you know what? At this price point, I have this series of pedals. You can put them together and you can make yourself this thing. And then at the next price point, so you got your regular Boss pedals. You've got your Wazacraft Boss pedals. You've got your new 200 line Boss pedals, right? Your DD and your RR and the other new thing, right? And then you've got the highest end that they're putting together, which is the 500 line. So if you looked at what Boss has done, I'm not saying it's super awesome, but I'm not sitting here touting it. What I'm saying is it's genius in the marketing, because you literally can say, I'm just going to put together, like I looked at the Boss thing and I was like, wow, for a few $100s, I could literally get my modulation, reverb, delay, and what's the other thing? The drive, all in just those 200 line pedals. Just buy the lot of the 200 line pedals, stick them on a board, and I'm done. And so I can understand how a Strymon fan and a Strymon user could say the same thing and say, you know what? I love Strymon, and I'm gonna do just that. I don't need to learn anything new. I don't need to go outside of my comfort zone. and I like the way they sound. There's nothing wrong with that, and I know we both can agree on that. So, and the same with the Source Audio. I saw that video that you sent me from uh, Sweetwater, and they were talking about the ecosystem and how Source Audio's got. Hey, we
That's
could
what that
just
whole video is based on. It's like, hey, like, look how
yeah,
simple this is to build this like really complex pedal setup with all these different things going on. And
right,
it was pretty straightforward, how it worked. And I saw that and was like, oh, here's here's what you have to do. So,
yeah,
you know, I think there are other companies that have done similar things to like what Boss and these other companies. It's like they're Baiyang, right? Like Biang, the Chinese company that like they're kind
yep,
of behind some other companies too. Um, they made what they called the Live Master, which was this like modular um it was like cartridge based pedal board thing that you could put
yep,
cartridges in, and other people have tried to do it too. Devi Ever was another one. It was like, here, I'm just going to give you this shell, which is basically a pedal board, and you're going to plug your circuits in, and the shell will have all your switching and stuff in it. But you can then just like line up your circuits. And the advantage, of course, is that like you have a smaller board.
right. And wasn't it TC that did the tone print thing?
Yeah,
So
well, yeah, but I don't see
right,
how that plays into this as much. But so what I really wanted to switch gears. So obviously I have the Kemper, right? And I
right,
know I would be remiss to talk about the fact that there is a ecosystem that exists for the Kemper that is not run by the manufacturer. Okay,
right,
it is run by third parties who produce software for the manufacturer, and um, I want to call attention to this because this is what I call a walled garden. All right. And I think everybody's
right,
kind of familiar with that terminology. But the idea is that, like, if I buy profiles for my Kemper, I can't use them on anything else. So I have to keep a Kemper if I want to continue to use them. Which that's dangerous. And I highly recommend if you're going to get into a system like that, you be very conscious about what you're spending. The classic example is uh, Universal Audio. So they make these
right,
fantastic sounding interfaces, but they have these processors in them that can allow you to run plugins, but the plugins are like $100 each, if not
yep,
more. Um, and they only run on Source Audio products.
right.
So if you want to migrate away and continue to use those plugins, tough shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Good luck. We're all counting on you.
and honestly, you see it a lot more in the software world, but that's what I want to talk about. So the good things, of course, about this like branding, whatever you call it, ecosystem thing, is that
Yep,
you get the benefits, right? Like easy switching, um, modularity, even like just down to the size level of modularity. Because I was looking at the Source, so Source uses the same enclosure for everything. You can use pedal couplers. You can
right.
literally have like the solid pedal couplers and put the pedals like a quarter of an inch away from one another on your board. I mean, that you want to talk
Yep,
about space management? That's how you do it. Um, But so that's one of the benefits, and of course, this is easy communication, switching, that kind of thing. Um, and then also just having things talk to the right impedances. And that's something people
right.
forget about, is that not all pedals are designed to function the same way. And sometimes you can have these weird impedance mismatches and things, especially anybody who's tinkered with vintage pedals. You know that
Yep,
like they are extremely esoteric. And if you put like if I take my fuzz faces and I put them next to an old crybaby, it's just gonna squeal like a pig. Um, Much better.
yep,
That's not an ecosystem. That's the complete opposite of that.
yeah,
Which it's funny because Dunlop makes the fuzz face and Dunlop also makes the crybaby.
yeah.
Um, so, but I want to be careful to distinguish, between good and bad, and of course the bad is like the walled garden, this idea that you're spending money on a product that you're not going to recuperate, um, and that kind of thing. So, uh, I don't know. I think this plays into a lot of the things we've talked about in the show before, but I want to be fair and unbiased. I didn't start this topic to like slam companies like Strymon or any of these people that do this kind of thing. But I think there's certainly
Right,
like if you're going to buy a Source Audio pedal, I would hesitate to be like, just buy a Source Audio pedal. I would be like, look, if you're going to do that, you should really consider getting these other products because they all play well together and it's going to give you extra, like it's going to give you more bang for your buck. Whereas if you're, when you're building a pedal board, like a lot of people they're driven by tone, right? They have tone madness. And I've been there. Trust me. You should see the pile of pedals that's on the table behind me. It's covered. Tone madness is like, it has to sound good. I don't care what it is. I'm just going to put it on my board and I'm only going to select the best sounding one.
Yeah.
And then you end up with like 5 really good sounding pedals on their own that do not play well together at all. Either power wise or size wise and all these different things. It's like, you got to remember, convenience is a big part of the game. And you got to kind of like select things. So if you're going to go through this whole process of putting together a board and you're going to start from scratch and you consider like, I really like Strymon. And I would say the same thing to use. Like, well, if you're going to get the Strymon delay, you probably ought to get the reverb and you might want to get one of their drive pedals, or you might want to get their modulation pedal. Like it almost gets to the point where it's just, you're not really so much buying brand allegiance. You're just making it easier on yourself.
Right.
Because I've done the ES8, right? Like, and programming MIDI patches and having, 15 sounds on a bank and all that stuff, and having to like literally go in and program each individual pedal on and off, and then, tempo changes on this button and all this stuff. And it's cool. And it makes you feel really good to get it working. But then you realize, like, you look down at your watch and you're like, I've been here for 2 hours and I got 3 sounds. Like, what
Yep.
am I doing? And so that there's that to be said about it too. Like, this is the reason why I would consider going and getting, an ecosystem product. But the danger for me, and this is what occurred to me this afternoon as I was looking at Source stuff and looking at pedal boards, is that what happens if Source goes belly up?
Yeah.
You lose your software, right? Like, that's the first hypothetical that happens, because over time you're going to have difficulty getting the software, assuming they're not acquired, right?
Right.
And then once that happens, you might be able to still control the device with MIDI, if it has a MIDI jack, or you have the the controller apparatus, which you might be able to pick up used, right?
Yep.
And because you're not going to sell it at that point, because the prices are going to go through the floor.
Right.
And I think that's the main gripe I have, and it's not really necessarily ecosystem products so much as digital products where this is an issue, because and I can't think of real analog ecosystems. I'm sure they exist. We mentioned the Live Master, and of course you mentioned the Boss stuff. But I feel like we're missing something. There is an actual analog equivalent to this process, and that would probably be immune to these digital issues, right? So like having to have the software, having to have this and that. It's like tube amps, right? When tubes were in danger of stopping production, people started freaking out and buying all the tubes because they suddenly realized, I'm not going to be able to get these.
Right.
And they weren't going to give up their gear, So I don't know. I just, I kind of want to like make people aware of it. Like, if you're going to do this, think through the whole purchase process, do the best thing for you. Maybe you should go tone crazy and like, no, I'm not using that because it doesn't sound good, even though it, integrates perfectly with everything else I have. And maybe, if a smaller board that, or like your particular situation, that works better for you, but just, be aware that these things do exist. I was shocked that Source Audio had the level of quality behind their products that they do. Now they're manufactured in China, designed here in the US, Strymon is made all here in the US, apparently. I still dispute that. I still believe their boards are probably populated somewhere else. It's just, there's not that much electronics manufacturing in the United States anymore. And it would be highly suspect if that were the case. I mean, there's Texas Instruments, but they're really just putting together microprocessors. And a lot of times they're shipping overseas. So, something to think about, I wouldn't buy into the hype that any pedal is made in the States unless it's like surface mount through hole. Or not surface mount, but through hole. JHS surface mount though is made here. I know that for sure.
Isn't Wappler built in the States?
Yeah, I don't think he does surface mount through hole.
No.
So, and if he has,
But still,
they're built here. Yeah, and most of the through holes and most of the people that say their stuff is produced here it's when you get into digital and they say they're assembled in the United States. Look, not even Fractal is made here anymore. Okay, the first generation of Axe Effects was allegedly made here, but that has since stopped. That has stopped long ago. So
yeah, I'm not saying. Oh, I have a blues driver too.
Yeah, well,
I was just mentioning my other boss pedal.
Can we switch gears? Let's talk about Brand Dillution because this came up in the group too. Jim and I had a conversation about it, and then Jim got peed. He got peed on, so I thought we should talk about it on the show instead.
It started going in another direction, so I decided to take the thing down. It was like, oh, let's do some bashing, and that wasn't what it was about. So I want to talk about Brand Dillusion, and the reason I want to talk about Brand Dillusion is because I want to talk about what happens. And there's a positive and negative that happens when a brand starts stepping outside of what its core values were at one point. And so at one time, for the most part, Fender was famous for two things. They were famous for guitars and they were famous for amplifiers. I mean, like you mentioned, the Passport.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, they were famous for those two things. And a lot of other companies were famous for their PA gear. Not the least of which Carvin. So the thing that has happened is that and I know that Fender isn't sitting there pumping T-shirts out in the Coronado factory or Corona factory. I know
Coronado,
right? Coronado. But that's close enough to San Diego.
Like somewhere out there,
California. I know Coronado is. I can drive there, but I know they're not making those in the factory. They're just saying, "Hey, T-shirt company, put our brand on there." But I look in the T-shirt section of our store, and it's almost all Fender, and the hats almost all Fender, and I realize that means that they're trying to get you to wear it because then you're becoming
you're a billboard. You're a billboard.
Right. You're a Jets fan. You're a Giants fan. You're whatever. You're supporting the company by throwing them a few dollars, but you're also, as you said, you're their billboard. And I only want to talk a little bit about the Dilution because it's almost like Fender, with the things they've been doing, have been walking down the same lines that other guitar companies walked to take themselves into a place where you not necessarily spending too much money, but diluting the brand and going too wide. And this is where it gets to like, okay, when I grew up, there was a company called Xerox. Okay, I don't know if they even exist anymore. I'm sure they do. But now, then all of a sudden, when you went to make a copy, somebody would say, "Go make a Xerox," because Xerox became synonymous with copies. Don't get me a tissue, get me a Kleenex. It became a word that no longer meant a brand. It's just like, now I'm not saying Coke is small or that Coke is hurting, but Coke. Somebody says, give me a Coke. Then they say, well, you want Pepsi? Yeah, that's the same thing.
No.
They don't even care.
No. It's not the same.
No, I know not everybody, but I'm just saying there are people who go, yeah, it doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't care. I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying a lot of people. So when you take the dilution of the brand, you take away, in my opinion, you're taking away the power that the brand's name upholds. I mean, I can understand when you're putting it on something that's a guitar or guitar object. But now you could walk into somebody's house and they could have a Fender cutting. I was joking with someone today because they were talking about Fender products that came in, and I said, I now have a Fender lunchbox, and I can give you this Fender T-shirt. I can say this Fender hat, this Fender, these Fender socks. I can give you this Fender key ring, and a bottle opener, a cutting board, and
All right.
and some other things. And you see what I'm
Yeah, no,
saying?
no, no.
Suddenly, it's not important. It's not special. It kind of goes to that if everything's special, nothing's special type thing. That's all
All
I'm saying.
right. All right. So let me interject and get started here because I completely disagree with regard to a lot of the stuff that goes on. So like when I hear about Marshall making a cell phone, I'm like, are
Yeah,
you effing
yeah.
kidding me? Like
I thought
they made a cell phone, they made a Bluetooth speaker, they made a refrigerator. Um
yeah, that was
those are the
ridiculous.
three lifestyle products. On the what the hell? The refrigerator sells very well. Okay. For everybody who's
Oh
like a
yeah,
basement musician, they want to have that in their, in their
yeah. The Marshall branded
right.
refrigerator is a big
So
sell.
whatever. Marshall branded refrigerator, I get it. Like that's one thing that yeah, that was kind of a smart idea because of the form factor and it's gonna go in, next to your Marshalls. Um which is probably gonna make them noisy as hell because of the motor and everything in it. But um
My kid told me to buy one. I said, "Ah, they'll have them. You can't find them
no,
anymore."
and when they do show up, they're expensive.
And they're
Um
gone like that.
yeah. So there's the
But I will
Marshall
say
fridge.
this: over on the Fender one, I saw a Fender one. Fender has one, but it looks like a gas pump, and it looks so cool. And it's got Fender on the top, and it looks like a gas pump, and it's Fender gas, and it's actually a refrigerator. And I thought that was the coolest
Now
thing.
those big ticket items like that, cell phones,
Yep.
refrigerators, Bluetooth speaker units, which I kind of get the Bluetooth speaker thing more than the rest of them because that's kind of what Marshall's known for. Um, Vendors delved into some of this stuff too. They produced some stuff that you're like, what? They had an endorsed cell phone from LG, that was like,
Oh, who's the one that did the Volkswagen? Was that
no, it's
Fox?
Fender. Fender is involved with
It was
well,
Fender.
so that's just their branded speakers. Which if you don't know, like they have a pretty comprehensive speaker company now because they offer a lot of things. And that was one of the things that came up in the group is that they have in-ear monitors. And like these are off the wall things for Fender. Like what's Fender known for? They're known for electric guitars. They're known for to some people acoustic guitars. They're known for basses, obviously, because they pretty much invented that. Um, and of course, amplification. And if you go back and trace history, and I had to kind of remind you about this, but I mean, they made amps for 10 years before they ever made an electric guitar. And they actually were making money doing that. And that was Leo Fender's primary hobby originally was, transistor radio repair, tube radio repair.
Oh yeah,
Um,
amps.
which is fine.
Yeah,
Which
amps.
is
Are a
fine.
good
So
thing.
like when they come out with a PA product, when they came out with the Passport series of PA products, like I got it. You know what I mean? And I think everybody kind of like, okay, yeah, they've always made that kind of stuff because they had like the Bandmaster thing, and they've always made some sort of sound reinforcement product, which is fine. Like that totally makes sense. But when you talk about the T-shirts, the hats, the keychains, the ashtrays, the you name it, you can get Fender's name on it, kind of stuff.
Yep.
Those things are so tchotchke. Like they don't cost the company anything. First off,
No,
I mean,
no.
literally for Fender to do a T-shirt, and I'm talking an elaborate T-shirt, it's $3.
I'm willing to bet it might be even cheaper than that.
Well, I mean, $3 with the cost of development and to market it and to get it into the hands of, like all the other stuff, not just printing the T-shirt and buying it from the manufacturer that makes them, because Fender isn't making their own T-shirts.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But it's
No, matter of fact, they are probably selling the name, kind of like Disney.
right, right. They're probably even licensing it out. You're right. You're absolutely right in that regard. Um, I mean, I don't know that's something you'd have to get in touch with Fender about directly, but I'm just saying like those items I don't think are forcing brand dilution. I think what forces brand dilution is when they start like making things where you go, huh? Like cell phones or, branded speakers in a car or, a cigarette lighter adapter for your guitar. Like, what?
Right.
Um, and I guess that even that whole thing, I look at that and I say, um, I say, hey, I get it. That's a guitar product. It's not going to be a big one. And I think the bigger danger for Fender is not this stuff. I think the bigger danger for Fender is pimping their acoustic line to the point where the electric line doesn't matter anymore or matters a lot less. And you know what? I got to thinking, we've had this conversation. What's the name of the Telecaster acoustic thing they did? The Telecaster?
Oh, the Acoustasonic.
Acoustasonic, right?
I was just looking at that.
Okay.
I had a person that was interested for about 10 minutes. And then they said, does it come with a case? I said, no, it comes with a gig bag. I said, you've got to be
For
me.
$1,500.
For $19.99.
Oh, you got the 1999 one? So this is why I think that product exists. And I figured it out. Fender's selling these things at a loss. They don't give a shit, right? They never intended to make money on these things. Do you know what they intended to do? They intended to show a product to electric guitar players to get them to go into the acoustic room and potentially pick up their acoustic guitars. That's what the Acoustasonic is.
I don't know.
Whether it's accomplishing its mission is a whole other conversation. But this product, we've been saying it from day one, has no reason to exist. This was totally like off the wall. Like, why would we do this? Everybody looked at this thing in the industry and said, why? I don't really understand. Like, why would you do this? This doesn't even need to exist, yet it does, right? And it's funny because the only ones I've seen were in the electric guitar department or in a platinum room, right?
No, we hang them right in the acoustic guitars. Matter of fact, it's funny because where we put them and whether Fender, because sometimes they'll pay to have or
to get priority listing or something.
They'll tell Guitar Center, put them here. They're literally hanging right over top of our Gibsons. So we have 3 acoustic Sonics in 3 colors hanging, and they have not sold one, hanging over our Gibsons.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 $2,000 Acoustasonics are hanging over top of $3,000 plus Gibson acoustics. The Hummingbird, the Dove. They're not even on the same wall as the Fenders,
but
they're across the room. It literally, because some people, I literally have people that walk into the acoustic room. They're looking. They're like, "Do you guys carry Martin?" I'm like, "Did you actually turn around?" And so, that's what goes in my head. But I know, oh no, the Martins are right here. Oh, they're right here. They were right behind me the whole time.
To be completely honest, your acoustic guitar department is way more organized than most of them I go in. And that's just like, what guitar do we want to hang here today, John? Like,
Yeah, no, ours are by class.
They're supposed to be, but they're never that way. Like that's.
Yeah, ours are. Yeah, definitely. And believe it or not, during our shifts, it is now whether or not they're upholding it or not, it is our job to go out, check to make sure the pops are readable, the price tags, make sure that they're tucked correctly, that the guitars are shiny, that there's a lot of fingerprints all over them. I literally carry a rag in my pocket like a guy that asks if you want your oil
F-level Guitar Centers around here.
I'm just saying that. That's our
the
job.
joke around here is you're lucky if you get all the knobs. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I've been to places where it's like, hey Harry, where do we have the whammy bars for the Fenders?
Dome knobs. You mean somebody used an Allen key to get that off?
What? I don't know how to do that. I had a guy. He didn't know. I mean, that some of the PRSs, the way they keep their whammy bars in is little Allen key. You just tighten it down just a little bit. But the point is that these guitars, to me, you're right. They don't have a purpose to exist.
No.
But I just want to say this, that this is the thing. I've never met somebody, well, I couldn't say never. I rarely meet people who go, wow, I really want a Fender acoustic.
It doesn't happen. And you know what? I'm sure Fender knows that. because they do focus groups and they have a marketing company, right? And I'm sure that they're looking at that and they're going, how do we sell these? And they're trying everything they can. They tried to get John Mayer to endorse a Fender acoustic. That failed miserably and ended up with him leaving and going to PRS. And I've heard that story about other people that have taken Fender endorsements too, that they were not allowed to have acoustic endorsements with their companies because they want to force people to play Fender guitars, Fender acoustics.
Yeah.
You know what? Honestly, I don't think they're terrible guitars. I've played several of them I liked. I played a lot of bad ones too, but that's hit or miss. Especially the acoustic level that I would be playing is like really inexpensive. And I'll say this though. I personally think that Fender should have killed the acoustic line a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's not making money for them. It really isn't. And there's no way in hell it is going to. And I don't think this Acoustisonic's going to rescue it. Because I think there are already better options in the space, and the people that would be looking for that are probably looking at things like the golden multi-axe and stuff like that, which do similar things. And I just don't see that this that product needs to exist. But it's the brand dilution that happens by when you take your core stuff and you screw it up, right? And there's somebody, I'm sure there will absolutely be people that will argue against me on this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The Time Machine series or whatever, the alternate reality thing, alternate universe models, those are brand dilution. Okay. You are not using the iconic body shapes that have shaped your company for the last 70 years, and you have no desire to. And now you're getting to the point where you're just trying to mix them up because you're just grasping at straws. That's what it makes you look like. Now, whether that's the consumer opinion on this, different thing. But I know that they sit in my local stores because they're just not widely regarded, and a lot of them were custom shop models, which, if you're going to do something, I guess that's what the custom shop is for, to do like weird one-off stuff. But I really feel like that was probably a net loss for them on that. But, maybe get enough people to come to the stores and buy Strats and Tellys that they didn't care. And I think there's a lot of collateral that goes on there. Now, the other company that we kind of talk a lot about on the show, and people hate us when we talk about it, but I'm going to talk about them again tonight, and I'm going to do it. Gibson, of course, we saw what happened to them, right? And a lot of people say, oh, they were a victim of brand dissolution. They weren't, okay? They were a victim of poor planning, a horrendous product launch, and then screwing up their entire product line and basically disiluding the idea of what those iconic guitars was. Which, I mean, I'm sorry, but when you take a Les Paul, which is known for being kind of a meat and potatoes guitar that sounds in a very specific way, and then you put robot tuners on it and offer boosts and 5 different selector switches inside the guitar and all this craziness, and then you flatten the radius and you put some crazy brass nut thing on there so that you don't have to set the guitars up properly from the factory. Yes, folks, that's why I believe they did it. It's pretty clear that you've lost touch with what you actually are. You don't understand that branding is only part of the equation. Okay, who you are, your identity, your brand identity, is determined by your relationship between you and the consumer. And so if the consumer is not congruent with your idea, they're not going to buy your products, and vice versa. So it is your responsibility on both sides to understand what's going on. It's the consumer's responsibility to understand what they're buying, and it's the company's responsibility to understand what they're providing. And I think in that situation, it was a complete disjoin, and it broke the company, and they basically lost a ton of money. So much so, in fact, that a lot of the other business dealings that they were doing that were probably pretty smart ended up suffering. And now Gibson's in the boat that it's in right now. Whereas I don't think Fender, Fender is taking risks at the right time, in the sense that, look, Fender is at the height of popularity. When I was a kid, and this was not that long ago, right? I'm only 35. I'll be 35 in December. When I was a kid, the guitars to have were Gibsons. Everybody wanted Les Pauls. Everybody wanted Flying V's. Everybody wanted SGs. It's all you would see in Guitar World magazine. All of the new metal guys were playing them, or they had Ibanez's, right? And
Yep.
Fenders were like, oh, those are for those blues guys, right? Those are for those dudes. And I can remember being like, you know what? I want a Fender because it's a professional level guitar, not because of the music that it was made on it. That didn't happen till later, where I was like, no, I get it now. Like that, and I like my guitar because it, it was used by these cats. And I think that has come full circle. And this generation, that's what they want. They want bolt-on neck guitars, meat and potatoes, Stratocasters, Tellys, things like that, Jazz Masters. Offsets are really popular right now. I think a lot of people feel like offsets are making Fender's money. I don't think they still account for probably less than 20%. I mean, I want to say they still probably account for less than 20% of the company's sales, even today,
Right.
as popular as they are, because the Tele and the Stratocaster are juggernauts, and they're not just juggernauts with the current generation. So that's why,
Right.
you know,
I'll say this. I'm going to say this from talking to customers as they walk in and out. The majority of people would love to own a Gibson, and they would love to own one of the top tier Fenders or PRSs. But the majority of the people that walk out the store buy what they can afford. That's really what
well, and
happens. I
the
mean, from
accuracy of
what I'm seeing,
you made it into a brand thing, but the accuracy of what you're saying is everybody wants a nice guitar.
right? That's what I'm saying. The top tier. Now, I know I left out Music Band and all the other stuff, but that's because I don't see, they're not there. It Okay, so when you walk out through the counter in our store, you've got the big guys, right? Those are the ones that are hanging behind me. So it's PRS. It's the high end stuff. The Gibsons are literally right at my back, and the Fenders are just to my right. Those are the ones they're doing this to, and the listeners can't see me, but I'm looking up and kind of you know, where, and then I say, "Would you like to try one?" And they're like, "Oh no, I can't even afford it." It's not no, I've heard terrible things, or no, I can't.
Yeah, it's just like can't
For the
afford it.
most part,
But
right, I can't afford. And then the ones that can, they know exactly what they're in there after. The ones that can walk in, they grab the one they want, they try it, and either they fell in love with the neck or they didn't. And if they didn't fall in love with the neck, they may try a couple more. That's really what it comes down to.
I think
And
that's
what
a gross oversimplification of the problem. But yeah, I tend to agree.
no, I'm just saying what I'm seeing. I'm not saying what
Well, it's
what
great.
we
It's great
hear.
that you're seeing a trend where you're at. But I'm just saying, like, you're in like a pocket universe there, because
I
because
am.
like
I am
so
in a
many
pocket
people are
universe.
buying guitars online now that's. I mean,
Yeah, we all live in
that's all
pocket
I'm saying. Like,
universes. That's what I was going to get at.
personal
Yeah.
experience
That
informs somewhat, but it's like you got to remember that the retail industry has changed so much that whether you work in a mom and pop or you work at Guitar Center, like you're not, or you work at Musicians Rent, you do not have visibility to everything that's going on in terms of
oh, couldn't possibly.
right.
I don't know what Billy Joe Jim Bob or Billy Jean Jim Bob is doing at home, and he or she may or may not be staring at whatever
I just
when they're
don't.
when they're at
I
home.
personally just don't think people covet. Like they're not looking at it and going, "Well, that's expensive. I have to have that." I honestly think
No,
that's like I think it's more of a budget minded decision for everybody, and I think that's where I agree with you.
yeah,
Is that it's like
yeah,
when they walk in, they see that Les Paul, and they're like, "I don't want to touch that because it's just out of my price range." That doesn't necessarily mean they want
right.
that guitar. That just means it's out of their price range.
Most of them, when I ask, and I get because I don't always have time. The response is, I don't want to fall in love with it. Kind of like when you take a car out
Yeah,
of
I
the lot.
know,
You don't
but
want to
that's
fall
a
in love with
lot
it
of
because you don't
that's
want
people
to have.
being nice too. It's like, well, I really don't want to because it's not what I'm here for, you know?
No, I mean, I'm just saying when they say I'd love to have one, well, take it down, take it for a test drive. It to me, it would be a driving factor. To me, it would be a driving factor to want to earn more in one way or another to try to drive in that direction. But not everybody's got that, and not everybody has that ability to earn that much. So it wouldn't matter where that would be expendable cash. But on the outside of that, this is what I want to say. We all, and that's what I wanted to get to. We all live in our bubbles.
Mhm.
So when I talk about brand dilution, when I talk about it, I'm just saying I imagine, because I'm an imaginative guy, right? My brain goes to weird places, right? I watch
Firsthand, I can tell you this.
too much South
It's a
Park,
bit
too
like
much Rick
being
and Morty, right?
Doctor Who's companion over here.
Yeah. And so when I look at all that stuff that Fender's got their name on, I picture a person who comes home and they've got a Fender throw rug, and they've got their dog is wearing a Fender collar with a Fender name tag, and they're feeding them dog biscuits with Fender
Okay,
on
all
it.
right.
And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? They've got the Fender
But Jim, can I
ladle.
ask you a question? How many people are
Yeah,
congruent with that idea?
a lot.
Oh, bullshit. Bullshit. Nobody has that kind of money,
I
Jim.
you don't have to have a lot of money, but that's the beauty of it. You know, when I watch people come in and they buy gifts for somebody that's a musician, they buy silly like
Yeah,
that,
they
right?
buy a
They
mug
buy
or
silly.
something, but that doesn't mean they have 20 other mugs at home already. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm getting at.
I do.
Well, yeah, Jim, but you're not the model of the universe. Like, dude,
No, I'm not. I'm
look at me,
definitely
right?
not.
Like
I
I'm a
am.
perfect example.
I am.
I spend a lot of money on gear. I'm in mountain of debt right now because of it. And if you like I would be the guy that you'd expect to have like the Fender t-shirts and the only stuff I've ever gotten.
You want me to show you how many I have?
No. I don't actually. Not at all. That would really no. I'm laughing because I actually do have some of this stuff, but it's all been given to me. I would never buy that stuff because and it's just because I don't care. Like all I want to do is play it,
I have.
you know?
I have the Marshall key thing where you put your keys
Actually, I think that's a
on the key ring.
cool piece. That's not a
That's a cool
brand
thing.
dilution thing.
And
That is something that's legitimately useful.
the same company makes a Fender one. So again, I'm sure that's a
Yeah, it's a
marketing
license.
license fee. But this is the thing now. Like I'm drinking from a Pop's Diner cup, right?
He's
I
got a
don't need
brand
this.
everything.
I have everything I own because I wanted to get to the ecosystem thing. So I have an Apple Watch with
Well,
Apple
yeah, see, that's still
earbuds and an Apple phone. When I didn't have Apple before, it was easy not to be in an ecosystem. But now I have two iPads. I had an iPad before, by the way. I had my iPads,
so you
both of
bought
them
another
before.
one.
But I have two iPads. No, no. I got to get a laptop first. But I got two iPads, and I've got and I want to talk about where this is going and how weird this gets. So I have two iPads. I have my iPhone, right? And now I have because I bought my new iPhone. What did I get with it? I got this freaking iWatch and this freaking earbuds, right? So, but it's an ecosystem. When my phone rings, everything in my house rings, right? My iPads ring, my phone rings, my watch rings, and my little earbuds.
If you'd like to call Jim, his number no.
Yeah. And he
Yes,
does
I
know
do,
my
and I was
number.
about to give it out.
So it's 555-555-5555.
Actually,
So,
it's
but my
zack at zvex.com. Oh, wait. That's for later in the show.
but what's funny is that I want to say that it's not so much dilution because I'm the guy I want to buy that ugly Fender sweater. Okay, the Christmas sweater, the ugly Christmas sweater. I want that. And I want that ugly Christmas t-shirt. Okay. So I actually like these things. My kids bought me the Fender meat cutter.
Oh my God.
Right? I have a Fender beer bottle opener. I have a Fender. It's sitting right over here. I can show it to you. I have a Fender bar stool that I used for when I was doing I don't own a Fender
All right.
acoustic. I have no interest in owning a Fender.
I
But you
want to
get
put
my
this
point.
vote in the group. how many branded items do you
Do you
own, and
own?
what are they? Because I'd
Yeah.
be interested to find out if you have all Fender stuff or all Marshall stuff or all, just let me know, because I really think this is like strange stuff when I hear that somebody has like, the Fender rug and all this craziness.
I have 4
How
Fender
could you
hats.
be that like brand allegiant? I mean, I obviously no,
I'm
yes,
not.
you are.
I
Jim,
only own
Jim,
4
what is
well,
on your
5
arm? Do
Fenders.
not tell me you do not have brand allegiance. That's bullshit. He's got a
That's true.
tattoo with a PRS birds on his
True.
arm, and he's I don't know.
It's
I'm not
true.
interested. No, yeah, bullshit. Next thing you know, he's
Yeah,
getting an Apple tattoo on
I'm
his
getting
ass.
I'm getting the F. I got the Apple tattoo on my ass. You
No,
wanna see it? I'm gonna no, it's I've how does this happen? How does the watch change its own face? That's what I wanna know. So look at that. I would never put that face.
I
Whoops.
can't see
Right
any of
there. I would
that,
never put that.
dude. It's a
You can't see
webcam.
that? Look.
I see that there's a
Look.
face there, but I can't see what it is. Is it a?
All it is pink with
Is
that's
that
not me. I would
pornography?
never do that. I don't even know how the hell that happens. I know it looks weird.
I can't see it. So
Really? Okay. But anyway, so my
enough of that.
yeah, I probably have if I have 50 coffee cups, I have one. I mean, I probably have more than that. More coffee cups than that. And every one of them is a different brand. I have 2 Fender coffee
Now I
cups.
do have some logo merchandise, but it's always like,
Yeah.
so I have like Death Wish coffee. Like I drink Death Wish. I have a
Yeah,
Death
I've
Wish
got a Death
mug,
Wish coffee
right?
mug.
Um,
Yep, I've got a
I
Death
have
Wish mug.
Fender guitars. I have a Fender gig bag. You know what I mean? Like it's simple.
I do
It's
have a
simple
Fender
stuff
gig
like that.
bag.
Actually, I think I
Yeah.
got rid of my Fender gig bag just recently. But like the point is that kind of stuff goes
But I don't have any of the
like
Fender
that kind of
pedals.
goes together, I guess, because that's equipment that used to go along with it. But it's like the thing, like Fender
Right.
pens and Fender, t-shirts and ashtrays and all that stuff. And like I'm sure there are collectors out there that's like the Coca-Cola people that have like everything in their house is Coca-Cola for Fender. I absolutely 100% do not doubt that. But I do not think that is the norm.
Do you know how much Game of Thrones crap I
Jim,
have?
we've already established that you spend an inordinate amount of money on crap. Okay.
Yes.
Inordinate,
Crap. That's exactly
as
what
in
it
out
is.
of the ordinary. Okay.
Much.
Um,
Yes. Much too
um,
much.
and that's fine. Like I get it. Everybody has their thing, and like I know some people collect Star Wars stuff, and we,
There we
like that. I get it,
Yeah.
but I just think it's funny that you're linking up like these people who are. By the way, these people that are buying
My Star
these
Wars
people that are
bedsheet.
buying all
I'm
this
just kidding.
stuff, right? They're not the ones you have to worry
Mhm.
about brand disillusionment with, right? Because they're
Right.
totally okay
No,
with
they're
that.
not. Right, right.
It's the people like me that are like, I don't really care. But then again, you'd have to make some products that you're going to actually take a loss on, in order for that to happen. And this stuff is peanuts, and none of it has a shelf life.
Oh, yeah.
None of it. You realize that? Like the only thing that has a shelf life, and this is why I didn't understand why Marshall built it, was the cell phone.
Yeah, I don't understand that still. I mean, I get a cell phone holder because those are kind of and they're throwaway. I understand that. Like people were getting those ridiculous cell phone holders with their
Yeah.
names and everything. I get this. I get the Marshall cell phone holder or a Gibson or a
Yeah, as long
Fender
as
or
I'm not
whatever.
paying extra for it. Dude, can you
Right.
like all right, so while we're on the subject, like I get it when you buy like a pedal board and then you buy the hard case because the pedals are worth thousands of dollars or whatever that you got inside. But like
Yep.
people buying cell phones, right? And then you pay like let's go back to the days of yore, right? When the cell phone was like $600 because they don't cost anymore. When they're $600 and then people would buy like a $75 or $100 case. It's mind-boggling to me. It's you just spent $600 on it. Why in the hell are you not holding the
I
company to a higher standard?
As you can see by all the fingerprints on my phone, you can't see it probably, but my phone has no screen protector.
You're insane.
And it has the regular old plastic clear because I wanted people to know that I got the midnight green color.
Look,
That nobody could get
he's
their
showing
hands on.
off. Oh my gosh, Jim.
my 512
Yeah,
gig
that's like what, like four
iPhone Pro Max, which is
$1,400?
way too much fucking money.
$1,400?
Yes, it's way
But
too
that's my point. I could see
14,
spending
49.
$100 on a case for a $1,400 phone, but like, I'm
Yep.
sorry, if I have to buy a $40 or $50 case for my $600 phone, I realize that you want to protect that investment, but my $600 phone is only going to be around for 2 years. And I'm kind of of the
Right.
persuasion it's like, no, I shouldn't have to buy a case. I should be able to go back to the manufacturer and say, hey, you sons of bitches, like you produced
Give
a
me
crap phone if I need to buy a case for it. Like, stop and think about
right.
that. Because they can
Right.
engineer
Oh, you're
this stuff
right.
a lot tougher than they do. I'll tell you that right now. Oh, it'll be a
That's right.
millimeter thicker. Who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about buying foldable phones because we want a bigger screen. Stop it. Don't you tell me that it's too thick. I don't want to carry it anymore. No. Put some shot protection on the inside of it. It should be able to survive a 20-foot
Yeah.
fall. Like, that's ridiculous. Um, and there
Yeah.
are companies who've done it. The Surface RT when it came out from Microsoft, and I had one. They took it on one of those like scissor lifts up 20 feet in the air, and they literally dropped it
Yep.
flat on the concrete because they wanted to prove that the magnesium housing wouldn't like bust or crack or break. And they picked it up and they started using it. And like, that's what I want
Yeah.
to see. And
Yeah.
so the fact that you have to spend like this crazy investment on extra materials to go with this stuff just drives me crazy. But yeah, so, and that's the other thing is like, that's part of the ecosystem, right? You think that they would produce their own case for their product, but they don't.
Nope. Nope.
So anyway, um, brand dilution, whatever you want to call it. If you want to talk about it in the group, bring it up. Let's talk. I have a feeling that I'm probably going to be on the alone side of this, but I can't.
No, I'm getting the feeling I'm going to be on the
Well,
other side. I really do. I think that I'm probably the only person that can picture that ridiculous situation when a person
no,
comes home,
I can.
puts on their Fender
I can.
pajamas,
I just don't think
and
that they're the vast majority of the Fender buyer, and actually, I don't think that's so. All the tchotchke crap, it's not aimed at the guitar player. Do you know who it's aimed at? It's aimed at the guitar player's family, friends, and relatives who are going to buy them
right,
that stuff for
go
either
buy the
Christmas,
stuff.
birthdays, boss's
Yep.
day or whatever. And
Right.
so just keep that in mind. I do think, like I said, I do think there is what I would call dilution in the core product lines that actually are what make these companies their money. Um, and that's dangerous. And when you see that happen, like one time they could
Right.
probably survive it. Like I would say that would be like the Gibson Firebird X or whatever. And then the next time, when they decided to flatten all the boards and put crazy nuts on everything and then go robot tuners across the board, yeah, that's recipe for disaster. Um,
And and the question is it too little too late going backwards now?
I don't think so. I think they needed to get in touch with what their core was. And I also think that they've made good strides towards that, but I feel like they're still kind of taking two steps back in other ways. And we know what those ways are. We've talked about
Yep.
them on the show. Like
That's
holding
right.
Mark Agnesi
Yeah.
hostage. That's a terrible thing to do. Um,
Yeah.
but I honestly, I think
It's silly
I
to
still
laugh
think
about, but it was
Gibson's got
true.
good days ahead, but I just think it's going to be a few more years before they're completely back on track, and
Yeah.
new buyers will be interested. The meaning the kids that are in high school now, when they get their first jobs and they
Yep.
buy their first real expensive guitar, are they going to go to Gibson? Maybe. It could be.
Maybe.
I just so we were talking about the people that come into the store and they're like, yeah, I really want to try that, but if I do, like, then I'm afraid I'm going to fall in love with it. I
Yep.
I've seen that before too. I've interacted with people like that before. But you know what? I when I go out and I actually interface with real musicians, most of them are really happy with what they have. And nowadays I'm not seeing a whole lot of Gibson. I do one guy I know, he plays Firebird. Um, but he's got
Yep.
a Strat, Telly. I think he's got an SG as well, but I've only seen the Strat and Telly. And then he's got the Firebird. And then another guy has a really nice 80s Les Paul, but he plays a Strat like last 2 or 3 times I saw him. And so it's a mix and match thing. And most of these guys are way older than I am. So that should tell you, like,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of, yeah, I've got this status instrument, but that's not necessarily what I use. So
Yep.
I don't think, and for our listeners, if you're listening and this is, your first foray into thinking about this, um, the price of the guitar really doesn't matter as much as like what you do with it, right? And what it sounds like and all that stuff.
Yep.
So if it works for you, it works for you. We're not telling you should go buy X. I don't
Oh,
really
yeah.
don't
No.
care what you buy and what you
Absolutely.
play. And I mean that in the best possible way. So, we got one more segment tonight. I know we're at an hour and a half. We're gonna make it under the 2-hour mark tonight, God willing. God
Yes, we
willing.
are.
Um,
Yes, we are.
so Jim, I'm gonna hold up a box. I did something
Oh, yeah.
that I'm not proud of, but it's budget segment. I bought the Behringer TM300 amp modeler.
A
Tube amp modeler.
TM300.
This is not one of the fancy pants Behringer line of pedals. This is so let's just get into it, shall we? Let me grab the pedal because I actually want to have it to reference during this. Sorry for the dead air. All right.
Yep.
So here it is. TM300, right? So on here you got level, low, high, drive, classic center off X for mics, right? You got mod, or you have what they call a mod, which is either clean, high gain, or hot rodded. And then you have an amp selector for a tweed sound, a British sound, which you might associate with a certain company that makes some really good refrigerators, and the California sound, which you might associate with a company that really boogies. Okay. That I've been waiting for that one all week.
That really
All right,
boogies.
so here's my initial impressions. I've heard a lot about these pedals over the years. I never actually had my hands on one. Not this specific model, but the Behringer line that this is, and it's the plastic pedal line, right? This is their cheap stuff. Now I'm gonna tell you what I paid for this pedal at the end. It's absolutely outrageous what I paid for this pedal. Not in a bad way. But yeah, so the way you change the battery on this, Jim, there's a pin, right? That you push on both sides, and then this whole thing comes
Uh-huh.
off. So instead of
Oh,
having like a
wow.
button that just like lifts up, like Boss does, or not, Boss doesn't do that. Ibanez did that. Boss has the
Little
thumb
screw
screw.
with button. Yeah.
They had to reinvent the
Yep.
wheel and come up with this thing like what Digitech has done in some of their stuff over the years, where you have to
Well,
pop
they had,
these
yeah.
rods through. Dude, it's a clunky system. It really sucks. I'm not even gonna lie. It sucks really bad. To get to your battery in here takes like a good 3 minutes. And then not only that, so let me see if I can do it on air while we're talking. So you pop the
Yeah.
thing, and then you pull up so that the pin won't go back in, and then you do the same thing on the other side. And then once it comes out, you can see there's a spring in here, like this is the tension spring for the closers,
Oh,
which is
jeepers.
fine.
Yep.
But then there's this. There's another spring, right, that holds the foot pedal in place, and it literally just sits on
Yeah.
a plastic, there's a little post in here that the spring sits on, and just to hold it in place,
Yeah.
right? The battery cable is literally the cheapest battery cable I've ever seen. I honestly, I'm afraid to
Yep.
look at
At
it
least
because
they're easily
it
replaced.
might just break in half from me looking
Yeah,
at it.
break.
I've seen pickup wires that are tougher. Jim, you know all about that. I
Yep.
have to give him some crap. All right.
I
So
do.
then here comes the better part, right? So they were really smart and slick with the way they designed the housing because it's all molded plastic, which means that that little pin that holds the spring on in the middle. Maybe I'll post some pictures in the show notes. The little pin that holds the spring on in the middle um, is all out of the same housing, right? Except for the part you actually step on, which comes apart. But the funny part is the plunger that actually pushes the FET switch on the inside. It's a
Oh,
rubber
my.
thing. Right? And it's not part of the
Well,
molded plastic. Like, what?
Yeah.
And yeah, I know why, because they
Yeah.
don't want it to break the FET switch.
Right. Break.
But
Right.
then maybe you should have designed it properly to begin with. Um, so I don't know. So now I'm gonna try to put this thing back together on air, which actually putting it back together was tougher than taking it apart the other night. So you got to get the
Yeah.
spring aligned. It has to be like properly aligned, otherwise the pedal won't go back together properly. And then the first surprise I had with this thing was I plugged it in and I started to get it going the first time, and I realized very quickly that it clicks when you push it down far enough, and it actually doesn't. You know what it
Oh,
is?
yeah.
It says spring got stuck, and it was clicking every time it went up and
Oh,
down. And I'm like, what did they do? Like, how did they design this thing? Or did they design this thing? I that's debatable at this point. And the other strange one
yeah.
is there's only 2 screws on the bottom. There's 2 screws on the bottom. That's it,
Oh, yeah.
holding
Yep.
this in. No,
Versus
the other
4.
2 screws are up here on the back side of the
Oh,
pedal. So that
so now they have like
right,
tabs or
right.
whatever
So
on the
which means
inside.
there's an extra manufacturing process in producing this thing. Probably actually makes the unit weaker. Although, if the bottom plate is metal, which I have not taken it apart to find out, if the bottom plate is metal, then that probably strengthens the plastic garbage. But then if you look real close, and I don't know if you can see this, Jim, but there's a line that runs down the side of the pedal. So this whole thing's halved
Yep.
so that they can
Oh,
assemble it.
yeah.
So it's not even one piece molded plastic. It's like 3 different pieces of plastic.
It's 2-piece.
Now the plastic
Or,
feels
yeah.
pretty
Right.
tough. If you've ever held
Yep.
the plastic they use in firearms manufacturing, this feels very similar. Um,
Right.
and I will comment that the jacks on this look better than I thought they would be. They don't look great, but they're not like super El Cheapo. Um, and
Right.
you know, so hopefully, I actually want to use this pedal for a while, and then I want to give it away. That's and I'll tell
Right.
you
Right. Right.
why. So this is a straight clone of a Sanzam GT2. Um, and if you've never used a GT2, for a while it was one of like the de facto go direct devices. Back in the early '90s when it came out, and
Right.
I will say this. So I'll give you the impressions of the amp models that are here. So like they have 3 different circuits: the Tweed, the Brent, and the California. The Tweed is like a Fender Tweed. It's pretty basic. It's almost like a Bassman. It's nothing too crazy. Um, the Brit, and by the way, the Tweed is the only one that stays clean. You can get it like completely clean, which is hilarious because Bassmen are not known for that. Um, they're known for kind of
Right.
dirting up, or any of the Tweeds really. And then the Brit sound, because I say that and now I'm thinking back and I'm like, yeah, every Bassman I played has been clean, so maybe that's not true. Um, the Brit sound is everything from like Plexi up to probably 900, right? I wouldn't say it goes
Right.
beyond 900, but this thing has an insane amount of gain. If you really want it, you can probably get it to JCM 2000 territory or TSL or something like that. And then the California setting is supposed to emulate Mesa Boogie. I would say it's debatable. Basically, what it is, it's the same as the Brit, except that the mids are kind of dropped out a little bit. It has a more Mesa-like mid character, but basically, it's the same distortion circuit with different EQ filtering applied.
Yep.
What do I like about this thing? So what I guess it's probably easier to start with I don't like. I don't like the plastic construction. It feels cheap. I'm not sure how long this thing's going to last. But when I get to the price, you'll see why I don't really care how cheap it is. How cheap it feels. So the other things that I don't like, I think the knobs feel really chintzy. The
Yep.
the battery LED is like this weird thing, and it's just some like little like product gripes.
I could actually see that be one of those things where if you change the color of the LED, it would change the tone.
Potentially. I doubt it. I doubt it though,
Yeah.
because this is based on a GT2. It means it probably isn't even in the
Uh,
it probably isn't even in the signal path.
right.
But so what I do like, it's a straight clone of a GT2, right? Um, and
Right.
and it so the controls, the low and the high controls, if you're plugging straight into your like mixer, I mean, I'm literally running the high at like 9 o'clock. And there's so much control between like, 7 and 9, and really 9 and 12. It's like completely different things. And the low control, I mean, same thing. It'll do your like thunderous lows all the way down to like, no lows at all. And it's a very sensitive control as well. Reminds me very much of the Wampler stuff. Um, and I basically only like one of the mic positions, the even one, the one that sounds very mellow, and that's the classic. The center and off X, like I haven't played around with them enough yet. I think if you play with the high control, you can probably get them sounding pretty good. This
Right.
thing's not going to do metal. It'll get like progressive rock, right up to like Dream Theater. And then if you want to go harder than Dream Theater, like forget it. It's just not going to do it.
Right.
Not without,
Right.
help. Like a drive coming into the front of it or something like that. And the other caveat I have for anybody who's considering buying one of these guys is that they're noisy. This thing is noisy. And I don't know if that's the entire Behringer line, but it's been my experience with a lot of inexpensive, cheaply made, Chinese effects that they're pretty noisy.
Right. Right.
If you run it on battery, it's not so bad, but the battery is not going to last that long in here, I don't think. So I have been running it off AC. But I will say, when I tell you the price, which I'm going to reveal in a moment, like this is a viable option for anybody who wants to get a SansAmp GT2 and doesn't want to pay $200 for a new one or $100 for a used one. I paid $25 for this, shipped brand new in the box from Sweetwater. All right.
Yep.
So for me, like I was sitting, it was like 6 a.m. There's the day after I ordered the Kingmaker, and I was going to check a tracking number, and I was sitting there and I was looking at Sweetwater site, and I go, I should just buy this. It's $25. Like, what could go
Yep.
wrong? I should buy this. And I did. And I
Right.
don't regret it at all. It came out of my gear money. This is not show money that paid for this. I paid for this. And I don't regret it. It's just expensive. And if you're like, okay, so use scenario, right? You're going to get this thing and you're going to plug directly into a PA at an open mic, which is what I'm intending to use this thing.
Right.
I could buy 3 of these for what I would pay for the real one new. And I could have all 3 channels, Tweed, Brit, and California, on my board and just switch them on and off as I go. I mean, that's when you make that kind of case for a product like this, and even if one breaks, I've got 2 others sitting there that I can rely on. I throw this one in the garbage and I buy another one. That's pretty convincing to me that this is a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, this is interesting. This is a viable option. If you can handle the plastic construction, you don't jump on your pedal board. And actually, you know what? This may surprise the hell out of me in terms of how reliable it is. But I have a feeling the switch and the input output jacks are going to be the weak points, and it's not going to be the plastic housing, which is kind of surprising because when I heard about these pedals at first, everybody was like, "Oh, they're plastic," and people wanted to make a big deal out of that.
Yep.
Now, they have a fully comprehensive line of pedals. The Behringer, I don't know what they consider this line. And I'm probably going to buy some more for the budget segment at some point. And if I can find enough cheap ones, I might buy a couple of them. But I think, I think what we're going to do, I think I'm going to use this for a couple months. As long as it survives, I'll give it away. And we'll make it a giveaway for the show. Remind me, keep me posted, because like I tend to forget about things like that. But this is $25. If somebody else gets some enjoyment after I am done using it, because I really do want to use it for open mic solution for a while, and just kind of like give it through, get it through its paces. So when we do the next budget segment, we'll touch base on how this went, and then we can talk about the giveaway and all that. But hopefully you know, I get a little bit of use out of it. I actually want to go. I want to jump through all the budget options for cabinet and amp modeling. That's kind of the idea. Because I know I'm probably going to end up with, you know, an atomic amplifier at some point, just because it's a little bitty thing that does amp modeling, and it's supposed to be really good. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys interested in the TM300? If you have any questions or comments about it, let me know and I'll try them out and I'll test it out. I do want to try to do a video. Because every video I've seen of these things is horrendous. And every video I've seen of the Sansamp GT2 has been pretty bad too. And I know
Yeah, so you should do a good
I'd
video.
like to, but all my videos suck. So, yeah, nobody watches them, so they suck.
Your fuzz series is highly underrated.
Right. As
I'm serious.
I recommended it. There's a show, he may listen to the show. Scott Hamilton from 60 Cycle Hum podcast, and I don't know if he's still the host or if like what his status is over on the Effects Loop podcast. But he used to host that at least when I was, you know, still like listening to every single episode. And I know he's been on the show since then.
Yeah.
He was asking about fuzz faces this week. And I kind of like, I was like, no, dude, here, like there's two people in this group that are authorized to answer your questions. And that was like Jason Fuzzmonger and me, you know, like, wait a minute. How many between me and Jason, like how many fuzz faces do you think we own? You know, like we own all of them.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we have, I counted. I have all my pedals sitting on the table before me.
How many
I have like
faces
4
do I
or
own?
5, right? And I have 3 of Jason's in my possession. Well, technically the Velvet Fuzz is not a fuzz face. But you know what I mean? Like, okay.
I do.
So, you know, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm looking for a fuzz face. And it was like, then he bought a silicon one. And I'm not, you know, Scott, if you're listening, I'm not trying to poo-poo you, but dude, silicon, that's not a real fuzz face. Like, you got to start with germanium. You can get a silicon, it's cool to have around, and they're like they're a good like extra thing to have around. But man, that's not where it's at. You know, like if you really want one, you know, you need to get this one. And I did reach out to him and I gave him some of my like thoughts and shared some knowledge with him. I didn't freak him out. Oh, of course I did. I didn't freak him out though and tell him, because he gave me crap about the Helix because I did the shootout with the Helix. That's the one I sent to him. But I didn't freak him out and tell him like, hey, if you get a germanium one, you should put it in the freezer before you use it. It works. It works.
Yeah. I know it does. It does. That's what I'm saying.
No one was as surprised as I was when it works. When it worked the first time.
It works well in a winter.
It's like the winter outdoor effect pedal, right? Like it's just designed for that purpose.
Even the guys in the what's the Siberian Trans-Siberian Orchestra are going, all right, it only works until we start
any of my
fireworks.
local listeners, because I know that Jim and I are like separated by big chunks of the country.
We're experiencing I was extremely surprised that we had power. We're experiencing very high winds and
we're experiencing crap. We've had snow.
Yeah, you guys got snow.
It's been cold. I'm kind of sitting here every day pretty much. You get up and you shovel off your car or you scrape the ice off the windshield. I don't have a garage, which means that like my life is that much worse. So we go out and I wait 15 minutes before I go anywhere. And you freeze your butt off while you wait.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to. That's the beauty of living in the Southeast.
So I don't freeze my butt off anymore, but
in the Mid-Atlantic. Yeah, but I got so I have a garage, which I can use. As a matter of fact, that's the door right there.
But he's not using it.
See it. There it is.
No, the garage.
What, the door? I don't need to. I will. I have room in it. I can open that door and you go, why aren't you parking it? I'm not one of those guys that has a bunch of in his garage. My garage is empty. And it's devoid of a car, too. It's like, I don't want to have to go through. I don't have electric garage
So he
door
doesn't want to
opener.
get. He's too
So I have to
lazy
get
to
out
get
of the
out and open the
car.
door, but he's not too lazy to buy a bunch of
No, I have
fender
to go
crap and
in the
decorate his
front
house with
door.
it.
No, I have to go in the front door, come around the house, go through the
What's the
house,
matter? You
go to
can't
the
buy a Game of
garage,
Thrones servant?
then open the garage. I don't. Well, I have, and here's the other funny part. I do have an electric garage door
You
opener
just
that
haven't
I
installed
own.
it yet.
It's not installed because I'm short and
There's
I'm
these
afraid
things
to
that they make.
die.
They're called
Well,
ladders, and
there's also these things that they make called
yeah,
friends,
that's
which I don't
that.
have any of.
Hey, you said it, not me, man. Uh,
That's the other. I got plenty of friends. They're just all
in
lazy
other areas of the
bitches like
country,
me.
in
I
other
mean,
regions of the country, so they can't, come over and yell at you and be like, "Why don't you do this?"
I mean, if my kid was still living here, at least I could say, "Hey,
Um,
Steven, let's go." But yeah, I mean, I think that you know, this is a great segment, and soon I'll be able to participate in such adventures,
yeah, I
and I
want to
want to
double
try
team
to
it.
do
I want
that.
to tag team it, and we need to get
Yeah,
that
yeah.
other tele pickup installed so we can get this thing done.
Well,
I
it has
know.
to
We're
come to
waiting on
me.
it now.
It's
This has been.
yeah.
I want to apologize for the show. I want to take some time out, and I want to apologize specifically to Great Lakes Guitar Pickups because we have had Jim and I both have had like a hell of a year this year, and I'm still going through it.
Yeah,
And Jim is
you
as
are.
well. And I don't want to get too personal with it, but like um, we got the set of pickups back before Gear Fest in April, and then like life got in the way for Jim multiple times, and just things didn't end up panning out. And I feel like we let Great Lakes down because we just like have not been on the ball. So I have some plans in the works to try and make it up to Great Lakes. I don't know if they're going to continue to do the giveaways long term with us. I hope that they would continue to do so, but
Yeah,
I'm not like going to force their hand or like be that kind of person. If they feel they need to part
yeah.
with us, it's fine. Like I get it. But we work.
But I still want to get a second pickup for this guitar, even if I got to pay
Nick and
for
I like
it.
great friends. Like I will continue to talk to him for years, and like it's just like this just did not work out for our end really bad, and I feel terrible about it. So I wanted to make that public and just get it out there so everybody knows like what's really going on with this whole situation. Is just Jim and I like we work really hard on this show when we've got the time to do it. And we've been trying to like
Yep.
put things back together lately. Just because stuff's been so nuts, and like there's a lot of things going on in my life specifically that I don't talk about on the show that are driving a
Right.
lot of this. I've got some personal situations right now that are very ugly. And they're not financial. Like I've talked about my finances on the show. Like that's open book. I'll tell you how much money I make. I don't care. Um,
And the fact that your home is falling
yeah,
apart.
the flooding, and then like
Not
some
funny.
personal,
Not
yeah,
funny.
some personal situations that are just eroding. And
Yeah.
of course, my brother was in the hospital early this year, and there's a lot of that. And actually, if he's listening, because I know he does listen to the show, I appreciate you tuning in, and all the positive vibes for everything that you've been going through the last year and a half or so. Um,
Yeah, and I know my kid and some of his friends listen, and again, empty nesting was difficult for me in the beginning, and it was something that I was, I think like some people, I'm not saying a lot of people or most people, but um, I was running away from my problems, so it happens. I mean, we all
Yeah,
have
so
things.
that being said, we look out for our friends our friends of the show, like both, listeners, people who interact with us on a professional level. Um Speaking of which, Robert
Yep.
Jackson was on the show last weekend. If you haven't watched his latest video, I suggest you do it and you think about the
Oh yeah.
content, because I'm
Yeah.
sure, because I know I've done it too. There has been somebody that or you've done it yourself that has gone on a Facebook video or a YouTube video, either one, and said something nasty to somebody, another guitar player or whatever,
Yep.
that was just totally unjustified and just totally unnecessary. Now I try.
Yeah. I know I've said things even in human
Oh,
interaction that I wished
probably
I
on
could
the
take back.
show.
So I know I'm not a perfect person. I and a
All right.
thousand times
So
over I
that
know
being
that.
said, the important part about this video is that a certain person, he made a video out of a certain person's product. and this has caused some
Right.
turmoil in our group. And I want to say, I personally believe it's fair game if you're going to make a parody of a product, right? It doesn't mean you think a product's
Right.
terrible or that somebody does, that's not for everybody, or that you're slamming somebody's product. Now it's a little bit different. I get it. Like some people don't understand that not, like that pedal show couldn't, they'd say they can't do a parody show because they're always serious content. It doesn't match the tone of their channel.
Right.
But Robert's channel is not that channel, right? Like
Right.
it's not serious. It's one guy's opinion, and it's clearly one guy's opinion. There's no moment
Right.
where I ever feel like it's not. Um,
And I've never thought, seeing, talking to, or watching Robert Jackson,
yeah.
that he
Well,
had a mean bone
that's
in his
irrelevant.
body, that he has ever had
That's
a mean
irrelevant. So
thought
I
in his
understand the
head.
argument behind this pedal builder, but in that video,
Right.
a pedal builder comes to him and starts to troll him on his YouTube account because of this pedal review. Now, if you're in our group, you probably know about the shenanigans that you may have known about the shenanigans between Robert Jackson and another former member of the group. I'm not gonna drag people through the mud. It's just not worth it. And like
Yeah.
my respect to anybody that works in that community and like feels like they should come to, and I'm going to say it, Zvex's aid on what happened in that situation. Listen, if you really think that Robert Jackson deterred anyone from buying a Fuzz Factory,
Right.
you're crazy. You are
Yeah.
absolutely out of your mind. I think the reason that the video works when he makes fun of the fuzz face is because it's totally trying to use it in a way that's not consistent with what it was designed for. And it's a noisemaker.
Right.
And Robert's attempting to use it to make, normal sounds. You know what I mean? Um,
Right.
I,
And
I
that's what it's for.
and this is my final defense of Robert's opinion on this before I go into the next section of this statement. I have owned a Fuzz Factory, and the reason I sold it was because, well, one of the reasons I sold it, and the other one is personal one, and I'm not going to bring it up here. If you want to find out, you can private message me. I will have that conversation with you. Um, the reason why I sold it, the real reason, was because it was a noisemaker. I had other noisemakers. I didn't need another one. And I had a
Yep.
lot of trouble, even though there are settings in the manual. They say, "Oh, if you set it like this, it'll work fine." They were not consistent. It was noisy. It made noises. It made like zipping, wee wee noises and stuff. And then like I was using it for that, and it was okay. And I don't have any negatives to say about that part of the functionality of the pedal. I'm just saying you cannot use that pedal in a way that's consistent and sounds like a fuzz face, for example, right? Um,
Right.
so that being said, I think, and I want to say this to our listeners. I was pitching this as a joke, like, oh, we could do this, and then a bunch of people will reach out to Zvex and do it this way, and be like, hey, you know, somebody's pranking me. Clearly, that's what Zachary Vex will say, right? I
Right.
think listeners of the show, if you like our show and you like Robert Jackson, he's been on here 4 or 5 times now at this point. I would suggest you reach out to Zachary Vex. I'm going to give you his email address, and you ask him to give Robert Jackson a fair shake at one of his pedals that he thinks that Robert Jackson would enjoy, rather than coming on his YouTube channel and harassing him. Why not
Right.
step up to the plate and say, you know what? That's not consistent with the way that this pedal is supposed to be used. Here, try this and show us what you're made of. Because I think that's a way more positive way to end this conversation between the two of them. And actually, I was encouraged, as I was talking to Robert earlier today, I was encouraged not to suggest we suggest Zvex get him a fuzz pedal, but that we suggest like something else. And I said, I was kind of joking around about the lo-fi loop junkie, but I think we should get him a box of rock. I think that would be right up.
Yeah.
I think that would be right up
Yep.
Robert Jackson's alley.
Robert
And I think that
Jackson.
would make everything a personal and amicable situation between the two of them, and it would end this whole line of garbage. Um, and I also think, and I will be remiss if I didn't say this, but I think an apology is owed, because I don't feel like Robert Jackson went into uh, Zachary Vex's sandbox and pissed in his Wheaties. But I do feel like that's
Yeah.
what happened with Zvex going on to his YouTube video and making an ass out of himself. And I know there's a lot of pedal builders who kind of like idolize Zvex, and that's fine. Like, that's your thing. Totally get it. Just understand, they're just two dudes. Like, there's no hero worship here, not on either side. And I feel like they both need to apologize to one another. But I really feel like Zvex owes it a lot more, because that's not professional behavior. And it's not consistent with how you want your brand to be viewed either. And so
Yeah.
I mean, I can share a dozen experiences with you with people that have, kind of turned me off to their brand because of the way they behave. And especially in the small builder community, where you're often working directly with the builder, you don't necessarily want to question whether this builder is somebody you want to work with. So we talked about that, the whole, but you and I talked offline about that, about, putting money in the hands of somebody you don't trust. So
Yep.
anyway, we've had a long episode. There's been a lot of topics, a lot of stuff covered tonight. I hope we filled it up for everybody. So I'm going to wrap us up, Jim, unless there's something else you got.
That's it.
I've been David.
I've been Jim.
And tonight we've been the Practical Guitarists.
Absolutely.